each letter of the English language spells out a word. I didn't read this. This is the cipher. And it's revealed through correlation. I'm not a doctor. Psychology equals negative value nature. We're going to examine proofs of this. We're going to deal with real facts separated from lies and physical delusions. And we're going to reveal how psychology and how sociology entertaining them is with a nature, entertaining natures of legal justification natures, self-defense natures of that are predatory in relationship. Into the next video, we're going to be about Abraham Lincoln in relationship to natures of linguistic extortion of him, of proofs of it. In other words, this is speed test New York. In other words, not to look up a fact, to call to look up a fact. But in other words, I read that that is known that the campuses, geopolitical campuses, education, the scientists taught that the world was flat, knowing that it wasn't. I read that in a book. Now, can we get that information? Do we have anyone to do that research? You know, I'll put this together in a book that we can own. But I'll put this in a book together that we can own. And with evolving as a gaming, so this is also a method, an interpretation. I want to read the Old Testament as if it's talking about an archetypal criminal enterprise. This is, in other words, in the video, it's going to take like 3 hours to upload. One, it's already uploaded. One talks about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is in the beginning of Genesis, beginning of the big Old Testament in English, written in English. And this is related to the decipher with the Alpha and the Omega written in English, with it distinctly. But in other words, this is about the organized crime, a breaching method, an evidence fabrication method with linguistic fields never addressed in relationship to only let self-defense natures of predatory justifications of predatory litigation nature roles with legal nature justifications. You know, only letting realized incomplete legal nature justifications of the Civil War and of, for example, of Abraham Lincoln, detached from logics and from natures of logic and psychologies capable of having a conversation or of enabling society to have an unaccoustic conversation about the nature of the linguistic fields of linguistic extortion upon him and upon leaders, and how in relationship to forced terror markets positions, because that's what was behind colonization's terror laws. For example, with slavery, we have to understand this in relationship to organized crime methods, terror methods, not just against black people. There was terror methods, there was terror laws against everyone. And it's not just that money that was motivating, it's an indifference. It's an engineering of indifferences grouped to an array of the same common net, a breached evidence fabrication nature masked to the same indifferences, saying that's just how things are. And with with that nature of logic, also forced only capable of glorifying physical facts. In other words, attaching lies and delusions to finite facts, body of value facts, and overall truths, forcing glorifications of our founders that are with insidious narratives needed by the people that had their arms around them, you know, too, but that were forced, they're foreign, in other words, they didn't even have their own, they were forced terror, shared policing natures with shared terror database roles, what actually has intercultural slavery. There was slavery in different cultures. It's not just to go after one. In other words, these are methods to keep us from understanding correlation as a species, as a positive value to identity to what that is, and that causes evolution, real positive. In other words, we need counter theater. In other words, too, so we see a way out, because it's not. This is worth methods to keep everyone invested to business before morality, before real truth, protracted truth, and with opinionators and methods that jump forward to block those with real truth. That's why we have problems with none of our campuses safe. That's why we have statistics in relationship to the problems with the abuses of women. It's first because of linguistic insidiousness with treatments of women. So that's people are going to defend. You know, it's easy just to take a little quote from this guy, but some of the more abusive things on women are with the exploited guises in relationship to systemic evidence fabrication natures and exploitations of that nobody realizes, in relationship to the lies and delusions insidiously forcing everyone's state incompetent of being able to deal with complex litigation terms and realities and actual facts that are true only always in relationship to what actually were the linguistic proofs of linguistic extortion, of not only the linguistic extortion, but with that methodically, simultaneously tricked, enforced, and hurt, only let realized indifferences to all the, not just to the law with the color, or in the law in relationship to the 20th century, women still didn't have the right to vote. This was not, these were indifferences were also being measured. In other words, it's a nervous system of a method that stays between all nations through the sciences, only let realized with realized and with unrealized needs to maintain roles with the same lies and terror progressions to all areas. In other words, obfuscations of the finite proofs, a body of value proofs, and top-down proofs, attached to the forced guises of these colleges as businesses in relationship to the roles with natures of organized crime that originally were, and that there were recorded proofs of having been and stay, and ones staying that are known and that are further demonstrable, but they're not realized by bottom-up courts and bottom-up sophistications and bottom-up legal natures, bottom-up area politicians, that means, and police forms, which people don't even realize we have, how many of them, and how they're connected, like with the people investigating from not just inside one of the businesses, but all we share a commodity landscape position, and we share terror database positions never being understood. We're using terror, and in other words, they're database stacking evidences. We have systematic evidence fabrication nature to all areas, and this is with a nature that only let realized breaching nature, her conviction nature rules. No, so religion's about how sciences were criminally re-engineered. And this was to re-engineer humanity to have to self-develop positions to form new nations, semi-ancient counters to the loss of actual nations, everyone being taken with retreat nature with it, with physical terrors in relationship to everyone start being cultivated to blame everything on lies and delusions, what was actually the cause of them, which is why we have to understand. In other words, that's way back. And then we come to modern nations, and then we come to the treatments of types of government, like oligarchy, and they're all incompetent and incapable of dealing with what's all that's actually attached to sanctions conversations and complex litigation impositions and treatments of the fact forced ill per the nature of forced hundreds of nations forced to share with terror shared policing of markets positions originally, and with them having denatured the landscape to do this, forcing everyone, even Native Americans, to shared policing and role with linguistic fields. Now we not only lost that were invested methodically and not alone. There was methods between the nations that warred each other that even their legal natures didn't understand, and even their kings and queens didn't understand, because even if they got smart, like the tree of knowledge and good and evil, they never understand these natures of organized crime. They'll never understand methods to keep everyone with opinion natures, treatments of lack of facts with indifferences, categorically forcing expert lean on experts, categorically only realized as evidence fabrication natures, glorified, because in relationship to terror, roles with relationship to that. These are the people that exploit our military since before its founding. These are the people who are reliant upon narrative, claiming their enemy to be against radical Islam, when these are the sciences with natures of lies and delusions juxtaposed with themselves, not letting understood how there are proofs that the ancients revealed beyond our control in all directions, below, before the finite, above our heads, all directions. The nature of there's one nature of positive that is unchanging, but we are capable to influence it with perception and with acts, and with as it acts. In other words, with the progression of ourselves, there's a reason. In other words, and because nations share roles with uncharged natures of organized crime, it causes negative value nature progressions, even if it's legalized, especially because it's legalized. And the way it was legalized was to have it juxtaposed with criminal enterprises that are internation, and criminal terror moves that internation, and wars that internation. And everyone only realized with, chop shop, like broken grammar school reason, and hurt conviction natures and indifferences with education, with basic shared, only let standardized with insidious delusions, and with methods to the obfuscation of what it takes to understand what our nations really faced, or what our founders really faced. You know what I mean? What the Civil War was really about the same thing that James Madison's movement was about. But it couldn't explain itself, because this is where nations were forced to share terror policing in relationship to terror database methods, evidence fabrication methods, linguistic fronts and fields left forsaken, unrealized, because not trained to the education of anyone. So the tree of knowledge of good and evil produces legal natures that have sophistication and in relationship to only realized evidence fabrication nature, public education, people. And then when they think experience comes with how they work with this system. In other words, most people wouldn't even really, I'm not a police formed or anything, I'm not military formed or anything, but you know about the systems because we know about the databases, and we know about the original nature of organized crime. But see, no one pays attention to that. If you pay attention to that, you can see and you can understand that. And then once you can understand that, the nature of organized crime, methods, and motivations for lies on linguistic fields against against Abraham Lincoln, against George Washington, against James Madison, against everybody. Linguistic fields we lost it, not by accident. In other words, only letting realized, smart, very smart, litigation natures are agencies, directors of nations. See, but they're not. And they're wise, but they're not unchanging positive. And they're telling lies and propagating physical delusions. And they're all connected to what's invested to exploit reaction natures in justification of that. Evidence fabrication natures only let realized. So even if you're trying to say something good about Abraham Lincoln or their counters to him, both sides are with roles, breaching nature roles, with treatments of the facts and with treatments of reality, and with roles obfuscating, with false front sides obfuscating needs to understand the nature of organized crime that leverage nations against each other, not naturally, without criminal persuasions. We must understand the nature of these criminal persuasions. So we have to understand how they are caused by a criminal enterprise that juxtaposed nations as criminal enterprise, and juxtaposed that, incapable of describing it per the way it juxtaposed overtly criminal enterprises and criminal natures to all areas and motivations of it, and it only let realized blamed on lies and delusions, and everyone only staying indifferent to courts, only let realized as reactions to it. But they're also with roles with the sciences and with unrealized, uncharged fronts and motivations, actively exploiting what blocks sciences from revealing bottom-up evolution. You know, that's where the suburbs don't suffer, which are still in colonial terror trap, infrastructure standards by terror laws that they had to force. In other words, they hurt everyone in their family if they even were if they were even found out to have been meeting outside of international, internation monitored terror database relationship conversations. In other words, if you wanted to meet to discuss building infrastructure or it more safe, or it not, you know, arranged differently, while they had northern slavery, you know, while they were making these houses in the north here, and they had slavery, and they had, this is before cars, they had standards of homes better than they had now. And if they tried to build any better or safer, there was terror laws against it. You understand? Because they needed everybody's time and opinion natures shared to differences into exploitations of breaching nature roles. You know, they have everyone exploited them. So just being white, you're gonna share exploitations of that with your opinions, because it's not you that caused the terror. You know what I'm saying? And it was black people and white people who were top-down litigation natures. You know, terror evil nations only let realize. That's why all these cultures, Latin cultures too, did bad things with slavery and to women, and all these cultures. There's an old art regarding Hercules and showing him attacking the Amazon woman. This is a relationship to political theater that was seeding with the sciences, consciously engineered, re-engineered not only in ancient times, but to stay opinion natures with justifications of obfuscations of proofs that correlation can use to reveal all the lies and delusions with American history takes, and all the justifications for that wanting and needing it to be blamed on things like money and like prejudice, because they need to justify glorifications of predatory educational convictions, of predatory litigation nature and legal nature convictions in roles with morality sabotage, inactive exploitations, murderously in mass, because not by accident. It's because we have to have it. We have to have. This is a basic about these things. We don't have to lie to children as long as we're keeping honest about the people who do the wrongdoing and the evil. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we have to do. To do that, to not be a fraud, to teach American history, and not to have roles in more insidious games through the exploitation of all ages of innocence. We have to explain it in relationship to the organized crime that was shared interculturally, to share a minority of people who are held on to intercultural, ancient, actual nature of internation sciences, to trick the world not to trust internation sciences, to force the world, the species, perpetually Oz, tools, nations, leaders, and people per the same linguistic field of trap field. We can't be, and the differences. That's why we have the problem with the prison problem, and with the violence problems, with the police and with the streets. It's more the police's fault, because they're the ones that with the roles with the internation police that stay predatory roles to all areas, juxtaposed with all these juxtaposed crime investigations and natures of police and business lies and delusions in relationship to business and investments and protractions from and as this. You know, in other words, all we have to do is admit real law. Let's forces the bottom-up evolution. We all win. All we have to do is admit we're broken. How? The correlation. You have to admit reality. You have to admit lies, and especially those attached to especially those alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, a'udhu billah, bismillah, yalla, yalla. Extreme Islam, note it is not a fact. It is a correlation, nature, with what is changing of perception that is invisible. We correlate as unchanging positive's nature or not, as identity as well, attached to perception, attached to body. See value I. Why? Religion try, we need you to train. We play one game. So it's not a physical fact we want. We need, I lost, who can find for New York game the information that proves that the campuses were organized as a criminal enterprise, for example, in relationship to the narrative, telling people that the world was flat, knowing that it was round. And knowing, you know, in relationship to all the opinion nature fights, for example, caused by narratives that still believe that the ancients believe that that the past people before modern nations with their founding, that they believed the earth was flat when they knew it wasn't. So they would rather have us fight about prejudice. And now this is a multi-front role, but it's not about prejudice. It's about them hiding the campus, the sciences roles, the legal nature roles, shared, the nation sharing liars, pathologically mass evil under the guise of good that directed, you know, like Harriet Beecher Stowe and Mark Twain, So these were total evidence fabrication natures as Oz, hurt conviction natures, being used, writing those two books they wrote with the houses in Hartford. Relationship to their roles with police nature that were only that realized with roles of mass serial killer and differences, not by accident, by the methods with colonization. So to keep that obfuscated, insidiousness, criminal insidiousness, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal nature. I mean, we are all naturally the legal nature. This is what this is about. And we have a value nature inside of us that longs its own identity as our own, no matter which body it's in. See, but we don't understand this because not by accident we're taken to ulterior from natural value nature system. So what everyone thinks is smart is the knowledge of good and evil. It can't see. It's smart and wise multi-front, but it's negative value nature. Only what is unchanging, positive always. See Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. I'm not a lawyer. Now, that's it. In other words, that we need that. We need that. Where's the evidence? I lost that book. Not by accident. There are proofs that the campuses knew that the world wasn't flat. So why was that written in my book if we can't find it? Someone please find that for New York Game, because that's the way to change understanding too. There are other reasons that people with evil that are actively exploiting poverty, the same people avoided with different natures of the linguistic extortion and manipulation of suburbs. We need these proofs. In other words, we're going to show that prejudice is being used to hold the conviction natures justifying ill sciences, ill scientific convictions with history and with the law regarding this, for example, and with education itself. And with the nature of what the campus is. They have to tell lies and delusions without explaining this, without understanding it through correlation. What we know is true always, but not other ways. See, but what this is blocked by what is being told to be told is true always, juxtaposed with only let realize summary lies and delusions. So we have facts treatments. They want to make women's rights about who can prove that they're better guys. You know what I'm saying? But it's not really it's only top-down guys. That's why everyone was taught to play, blind respect for top-down legal natures and not reality. And with that is the nature of internation police force with a shared market position. So they're here, but they can't talk about each other. I didn't read that. We can see this through correlation, and it's worse if how are they going to share market's position, market values, if they don't share policing over here? And see what that is connected to at the same time with the terror overseas, the international, the modern terror group narratives, with the other ones already, everyone already convicted and hurt, the victims of it, or are simultaneously victims of campus, interscience, intercity natures of organized crime with our legal natures, in other words. That's why so many kids are getting, even entertaining those natures of hurt pathology, because they're actively being hurt these areas. Millions of people through time. And everyone shares in differences with the delusions, with the physical delusions that think business can do this. Business can't be free until linguistics are free first, until metaphysics is free first. Metaphysics can't be free because the sciences won't even let, the sciences are forcing lies and physical delusions, claim that radical consciousness is sabotaged by going after the surface value of the Constitution's purpose too, for what we needed to understand religious freedom for. So we left everything, we left the courts justifying themselves as mass serial killer indifference natures too, as well, in relationship to the problem with the prisons and their facts treatments. But see, they don't understand that, and it's too late. That's the only way everyone gets realized to it. So they stay natures with physical delusions with what jobs are in relationship to this. In other words, we know that we had a war on poverty and we lost it. And no one even addresses why, because no one cares. In other words, everyone's just worried about having enough people comfortable enough to have all people left out, and differences to that with opinions. And with those opinions, enough, when they're enough to that, even before that, they're enough to be so fraud that they can only be false glorifications, a blind faith, and forced terror shared policing, and that over our regular police. And they can't speak about it because no one has. That's the proof. No one has. So what do? They put big block of the collected works of Abraham Lincoln, say. But they got only forced, the conversations over here. They're forcing, they're forcing lies and delusions with these physical forced glorifications of leaders and public figures, people they martyr who were civil rights tools with incomplete legal nature remedies, not by accident. In other words, we don't have time to explain American history without using criminal enterprise, without using that word, without using the word archetypal criminal enterprise or devil, because as we even devil, we don't have time for that. We have to talk about archetypal criminal enterprise, and I want to show you that this, even the Old Testament reveals decipher with this, and really had Islam and Jesus, had Muhammad and Jesus with other religions too, multi-front counters to human education's criminal re-engineering by what criminally re-engineered only realized predatory legal natures, and only letting them realized at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, as fake sophistication, as fake morality, and hurt as serial killer, serial killer indifference natures and tool natures, breaching rules, blaming it on other people. So with the real life hurt and crimes, even a lot of them not even hurting anybody at all, they have people's lives, human value, human consciousness every day stuck in cells, tortured by people in the prisons too, through time, with known and with hidden and with actively hidden roles, with evidence fabrications in relationship to the cases, and court connected, area connected, needs to cover up lies they already have connected to investigations in relationship to things like serial killers, like related serial killers, body dumping contexts, and KKK groups, Italian groups, and like in my high school, they singled out the Latino groups when they talked about the gangs, and then they want to talk about prejudice. You see what I'm saying? And they involved with little areas. Hartford is a little city between New York and Boston, in the capital of Connecticut, and they have all kinds of narratives they have the Italian gangs juxtaposed with the Latin gangs with the police. You see what I'm saying? Because this is the nature of how they share. Maybe they do the undercover too. But the point is they don't have the right to undercover and use the right to lie and mask the police forms for evidence fabrications. But they've been doing that because of the way they've been inherited and affected by breaching methods, to need to do that in relationship to cover-ups of lie progressions into sabotages of the time and the treatments necessary for related issues and related to mass internation, organized crime impositions upon us at once. See, this is in conjunction with linguistic fields we lost to. So they become predatory not only to our leaders, but our leaders language becomes predatory to us. So these sciences are only letting the parties, the leaderships of the parties, predatory to their own, to everybody, to their own candidates, forcing them to be treatments that justify their treatments, trained to them with with delusions and with motivations for the campuses, with roles, with the policing nature roles, with uncharged crimes, with internation, shared policings of our market positions to all areas, and using intercampuses and exploiting all ages of innocence and of time and positions, not by accident, in relationship to treatments of being able to, everyone saying, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about policing nature, corruption, because it's not them alone. But when we don't blame the low level police, these are the top police that are involved, and they're exploiting, where they're making evil with that's connected to the natures of our regular police, and it's connected to the natures of the police that we don't realize with our schools and with the manipulations of people's classrooms and putting people next to each other. In other words, in relationship to needs that are realized for long-term lie progression cover-ups and methods to it that are exploiting our innocence, again, all ages of innocence, too. These things connected to narratives with how the people have to get jobs, and they have to see these people into the nursing home jobs, and these people in this medical jobs. These are evil. We have to understand, Joseph Mengele, we still have stuff like that going on today in mass, and we have, because of the nature of the roles with the courts with it, how the way the medicine and how psychology's lies and delusions and evidence fabrication sabotages, even entertaining it, is juxtaposed with the courts. And it makes them, it's used not only for legal reasons to train their language, but then they're directed to further pretend that they didn't realize things, and to force suits into courts that are offensively not letting the law be followed with the streets, because they're not letting police reports be made, and then just write whatever. This is because they're colonized. They're tools for colonization. Our courts. That's how in other words, not even debatable. We lost the war on poverty. And so if you make overall convictions with truths, they have to defend top-down logics that have been blaming on business, and lies and delusions. So we have to see what can't take reality, what can't take hearing the truth. And then they have to pretend that people don't want to hear about about being bored. You can't fix something if you can't admit it. But it's what's actively exploiting that has to be fixed first too. So even if the person doesn't want to talk about being poverty, they accept it. They still have those opinion natures with lies and delusions in relationship to the impositions upon the suburban families by the legal natures with the roles with active exploitations of urban areas. So they need prejudice used as a weapon. In other words, with linguistic treatments and with slanders of people in relationship to all the lies that are only realized, mass told, trained to be told by police forms. So in other words, with that, they're connected to maintenance of stays, tall areas and natures in relationship to natures of that have been left unaddressed and just considered police nature. But the police nature is breached with this, before this. And we have to understand how. In other words, they're only realized That's her evidence fabrication nature. Tools are legal natures. That's why we lost the war on poverty. That's why we don't just force bottom-up standards. And, you know, everyone else doesn't lose standards. Everyone's standards gained by that. So they can't even explain. We have to understand, we anticipate, knows that our teachers have to tell lies and delusions as evidence fabrication natures, not treating organized crime, not treating criminal enterprise juxtapositions as the cause for the criminal and terror internation police database relationships to humanity, and methods for this, breaching methods, organized crime, linguistic fields we lost to. Not blaming it on that, you blame it on lies and delusions, and you force that juxtaposed with the nature of sociology and of psychology, forced in as criminal insidiousness roles in relationship to treatments of facts and of people that are preventing people from being able to use the law by forcing the slanders and terrors right under our noses. The laws aren't followed. In other words, actively, poverty is being exploited in relationship to this. You know, in relationship to delusions with the criminal justice industry, only letting trained branches, predatory legal nature, convictions, moral indifference natures, justifying it as an industry, and not by accident, on so many levels at once. So we have, still we have not real facts, we don't have the law that it claims to be followed, and it knows that, but just that's the way it was trained to be. In other words, liars. That's why radical Islam, radical any religion, is the radical of correlation, which is correlation between unchanging positive and what's positive or not. So that's what's radical. What's radical is invisible value, discernment. So when we speak, we're talking about what is known, what is visible, but it's not invisible because we know it through correlation. I talk about a rabbit, I'm talking about a rabbit, doesn't even have to be here. What we have to understand is the nature of organized crime, the breaching methods, which were linguistic too, and first. And that's with the law. If you can't defend free speech, then, and at the same time you can't defend religion, and you're defending linguistic breaching fronts against it, because you're in defense of blind terms like police, which are breached. So the bottom up people, our language, it's all right if we don't say it exactly right, but they're the ones forcing that everyone not say it exactly right, exploiting it, because that's the only way they were trained. So what we have to do is force the facts that reveal this addressed, and realize how many lies and delusions they pretended were facts that weren't, and admit we were broke, and put something, and people who didn't commit violent crimes, we got to take them out of jail too, in relationship to it's been there too long. The proofs of it, but we have no courage with linguistics in relationship to our agencies. They do this with theater too. This is one of the things about theater. They have lies and delusions when they think it's a good idea to force that we glorify our agencies. When it's the opposite, you're only supposed to glorify unchanging positive. You see? So these people are with restricted natures of logic. That's why they can't defend themselves at complex litigation natures. They just they get in a debate with a nation, and they just say, "Oh, tell them they're evil," and then that's like a serial killer type mentality, indifferent to all the lies it's telling with the surface thing, but people are connected at the street level already actively in relationship to uncharged lie progressions. They need these top-down lies. They need to say that extreme Islam is our enemy. Then a Muslim becomes your enemy because that's not a real thing. They're just telling you what you can make up. Now they're telling the stewards to cover over long-time evidence fabrication methods right through these natures of only realized knowledge of good and evil, blind, evil, people exploiting our blindness to all their exploitations at once of insights and of truths and methods of attaching lies on truths, putting categorical truth, exploiting polarities in the nature of humanity. Nobody even realizes because we're not being able to use correlation, so we can't understand these natures of the motivations to lie for good people, what they call good people, insidiously. Because everyone's a good people, but everyone's with shared lies and delusions entertained. That's why we lost the war on poverty. And why it's actively exploited right now with the proofs, but there's nowhere to make a police report. And the police report, they could tell lies in the background, but they can't put it on writing. That's not by accident. That's exactly what related to the extortion of our leaders. And there's obligations of the law for them to be able to do that, but we can't do it because of the way it maintains intercampus, intercity, intercommunity through time, linguistic tricks and methods. Again, that we don't have the sophistication because we don't have the honesty to let the conversation to demonstrate how. It's right here to see, but everyone wants to waste time with glorification. So read the whole complete works of Abraham Lincoln, and it still won't explain. It will still be with lies, and it won't explain lies and delusions in the nature of his linguistic extortion. As well as correlation will alone. Just between what we know and we don't know. And what we can do if we follow the rules and let our legal natures be revealed as the liars. Everyone else stays with this. And with the internet tied to new modern needs, terror needs, through police in relation and through intercity campus connections, needing to cover up old school evidence fabrication phenomena and terror with methods pretending to be policing integrity. Again, with our original terror negotiations not understood, because we have to focus on the criminal enterprise. That's why we need the evidence. We need someone in New York to get the evidence. Who's going to, in other words, where is that book that says, where's the evidence that says that the college, that the campuses of Europe and of other nations knew that the world wasn't flat? Where's the evidence? That in other words, we have to make an indictment of history and of legal nature treatments of this, of how it happened. We don't do it by go after people. We have to go after facts. We have to be, when you go after try to demonize a person or demonize it like a language in relationship to ladies, those movements are connected to criminal uses of men and women, for example, with our campuses. In other words, self-defending roles with legal natures who are predatory, but they have the guys and the blame and the self-defended narratives with the fake identities of the colleges. It's all theater. That's not reality. Saying, "Oh, this is my alma mater." That's all. That's worse than it's exploited. It's evidence fabrication roles with our sciences. There's no glorification. Big deal, their business. If they want to say because they're a business, then let's get paid back for all the evidence fabrication roles with them and all the terror roles with them. They're demonstrable. You know, they can't defend themselves as a business. That's why they're a tool for evidence fabrication nature. Policing, the predatory litigation natures only realize exploiting them for what was there before that, which is the real sophistication, which is the archetypal criminal enterprise, aka the devil. A criminal enterprise, which is more logical to teach, and which is more defensible, which is more discernibly what it's talking about, the Old Testament, archetypal to criminal enterprise. It's not really talking about real ghosts and demons. It's talking about, it's a method of countering human education, human conviction natures already taken, incapable of honesty, and worse. So in other words, that being attached to whatever book was going to be handed down. So if that book was written in the knowledge of good and evil, and trying to make the distinctions, they're going to take it out. So they had to put it in cipher. We have to understand the tree of life is unchanging, positive always, actively in demonstration to us, because it's coming through temporary value nature. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil is in relationship to justifications with indifferences to what needs to tell top-down lies, needs to hide them because of the nature of what it, in other words, internation criminal enterprise called negative value nature progressions that cause the need for federal investigations. And it causes the people who exploited them with the need to tell lies in relationship to this as wrongdoers, even if not as associate criminals of it, as wrongdoers in relationship to what they don't even understand. In other words, our top-down, most sophisticated legal natures and generals, they don't understand. That's why they're going after extreme Islam. They can't make a finite enemy. And not only another proof of it is that both them and ISIS are with treatments of the Quran that are ignoring its sequence nature of conversation, and are doing what it warns against, which is people that are say they're Muslims always, but they're not really Muslims. This is multi-front linguistic fields we lost to, and methods and motivations with linguistics in relationship to the law, with motivations that people can't see because they're shared by our nations, and not in relationship to money, in relationship to needs to lie, and the needs to stay in differences in relationship to vestments and justifications of human standards with language and morality. All we have to do is admit all nations share this loss to the sciences and how, and just drop guys. There's worse than not good to glorify education. To glorify the only thing we have to glorify is what takes away, what obfuscates education. That's it. Not what it is as a top-down lie, and juxtaposed with lies and delusions. We understand pathologically ill sciences with convictions, relationship to things as serious as a civil war, and as law, and as free speech, and as religion, as the surface value of the Constitution, and all the methods connected to exploiting the language of below it that is demonstrably flawed, and in other words, breach, evil. The really juxtaposed with motivations, blaming our crime statistics on other things, and juxtaposing lies and delusions to their interpretation, and then self-defense nature insidiously forcing that hate per ulterior interests. So we have to understand the nature of the organized crime that's causing legalized criminal insidiousness, systemic, in conjunction with the overtly criminal enterprise, criminal insidiousness. Thank you.